Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9 to 5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.
Welcome to Life Her Podcast. Today I have an incredibly honored guest with us tonight, and it's Sheena Yap. And Sheena is a Wall Street Journal best author, and she's a keynote speaker, a consultant, and she's also an award-winning host. I am so excited to talk with her tonight because she teaches a lot about self-confidence and her amazing podcast and everything that she have going on. So we are going to be uplifting you and inspiring you and also making you feel a lot better about yourself and your well-being and the things that you are into in your personal life to get through it. So hey, Sheena, how
Hey,
are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and be your guest for tonight. So, really excited.
Yes, I am super excited because, I love talking a lot about confidence, and a lot of people, we lack it a lot. And it's not even like purposely that we lack it. Sometimes it's just something that naturally come and we are trying to like figure it out, and then we won't know until someone actually tell us. So what inspired you to really talk about Tao of self-confidence, and just what's the point of your life where it led you to focus on the leadership and the self-confidence?
Yeah, that's a great question. Self-confidence really started with my own confidence issues. In 2015, I was dealing with my own confidence issues and just growing up as an Asian kid, in Toronto, in the 90s, not seeing anybody that looked like me on TV. I was always ashamed of who I was, ashamed of my own culture, wanted to have blonde hair and blue eyes to feel more accepted. Uh,
Wow.
and and in 2015, as I was looking for resources that really catered to Asian women's confidence, I didn't see any. And so part of me thought maybe I'm the only one dealing with it, but I know culturally we all deal with it, and we've always been told to never talk about it. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. But of course, that's not true. And so I really wanted to create a platform where I could elevate Asian women's voices and beyond, and also provide a support system. And so I started my own podcast, The Tao of Self-Confidence. Had no idea what I was doing. There was hardly any Asian people podcasting at the time. There was maybe like two that were like that I knew were talking about the Asian community. And since then, I've interviewed over 800 women on the topic of confidence. Yeah, have gotten over 1.3 million downloads all over the world, and I never thought that it would ever happen, and because of that, I've also written this book under the same title, The Tao of Self-Confidence: A Guide to Moving Beyond Trauma and Awakening the Leader Within, and I have my upcoming book coming out next May, which is Closing the Confidence Gap: How Empowered Women Change the World. So, for me, it really started with me looking for something, and I realized that if I really needed it, I just had to create it. A lot of people out there will complain there's not enough resources, there's not enough representation, and it's like, okay, well, if there's not enough, then I might as well create it
Yeah.
and see where it goes. I mean, I didn't start with, 2 million followers or didn't have like had no idea what I was doing, but I realized I had to just build it and see where it goes. And from then too, like I've been able to speak for different corporations about confidence and leadership, like Live Nation and Meta, NASA, which was really something that I didn't even think it would be in my cards. So really grateful for this. And it just, for me, I do this to prove to others that it's possible, especially as women. It's so important to have representation because there's not enough women in leadership. There's huge gaps in every industry. And part of the reason why I have my upcoming book is because the World Economic Forum mentioned that it's going to take at least 130 years for gender parity to be achieved. But at the rate we're going, I feel like it's going to take longer, especially when you hear things like women in Afghanistan aren't allowed to speak out in public, aren't allowed to show their faces in public. I mean, they're not even allowed to sing out loud in their own homes. It's like it's wild that these things happen, right? Or there's still like human trafficking, child marriages, like all these things still happen today, and it's like we've taken one step forward and like five steps back. So it's really up to us to build that confidence to show up, to speak up, to be the leader that we're meant to be. Is it going to be easy? Heck no. It's probably going to be a lot of challenges. We got to work 100, 1,000 times harder. But when we push through all those challenges, like just imagine what we can accomplish. So that's a little bit about me. And I live in Toronto.
Wow, that is amazing. So, as a best-selling author and podcast host, how has your personal experiences influenced your work and your message to what you share to your audience?
I think for me, it's really just showing up, leading by example. One of the things I'm really adamant about, especially for women, is to empower women to self promote, right? Because for so long, we've been told that self promotion is tacky, it's not ladylike. But to me, self promotion is empowering, right? Because you're showing up, you're showing others the products and services that you sell that can make a difference for somebody else. And if we don't promote ourselves, like who's going to come and buy our stuff? I mean, men do it all the time, right? And they have no fear. They don't care if they get ghosted or get rejected. And I get it. As women, we care a lot about what we think about, right? I'm still the same way. There's still days where I ask myself, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, right? And before social media, they said the rule of marketing was the person needed to see your product or service at least 7 times before they make a buying decision. But now that we have LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, it's like 5 times the amount. So it's like if you're not if you're not doing that, like how do you expect people to come to you? So it's really important for me to just show up, show others what's possible. So it's just leading by example, right?
Yeah.
Sh- giving that confidence for them to see like I'm doing this too and it's scary, but I'll be there to do it for you so that you can also have the confidence to do it as well.
Wow. So you've interviewed over 800 Asian women.
Oh,
Now,
yeah,
that is
800 women, mostly Asian women, but I have interviewed women outside of my Asian culture.
okay. That is amazing. So, in their journeys to self-confidence, is there any like particular story that stand out to you the most and deeply impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I am grateful for every single story that the women have been able to share on my platform. Some of them they've shared it the first time. Some of them, it was their first time being vulnerable. And I know everyone thinks vulnerability is um a a weakness, but it's actually our strength. And so some of the stories that really stood out was in the beginning, I actually interviewed a woman who's a Christmas song artist. And of course, singing Christmas songs for a living isn't gonna pay the bills most of the time because Christmas happens 3 months out of the year, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so but this was her passion, she wanted to write and sing Christmas songs, and she went out there and decided to do it. She couldn't find a record label that would sign her as a Christmas song artist, so she said, I'll open one up and I'll sign myself as a Christmas song artist. And so because of that, she was able to make it to the charts, the Billboard or like the list of like best Christmas songs because she was so focused on becoming that. And she got signed in the Philippines where actually once the Burr month starts is Christmas. So I mean, if you're in the like I'm from the Philippines and Christmas starts in September really and probably doesn't end till like February. So I mean, she picked a good country to be signed in because Christmas is huge there. But the thing was, it's just like if you really want something, you're gonna find a way to do it, right? As women, we're very resourceful. We'll find a way, especially if you're a mom. You're always resourceful. You're always trying to find ways to make your kids stop fighting with each other, make them eat their vegetables, make them do their homework. Like we're so resourceful. Sometimes it's just how we perceive ourselves that just stops us from moving forward. Another one was I interviewed a woman who's the first armless pilot.
Wow,
So
really?
yeah, she flies the plane with her feet because she was born with no arms. And of course, we think, as women, as humans in general, we just think we have all these limitations that stops us. But this woman has a limitation, like she was born with no arms, and the moment she felt her true self was when she took her prosthetic arms and walked into the bus without arms. And because of that, she does everything with her feet, right? She has a black belt in karate, she drives, she surfs, and she flies a plane. So, she never let her limitations stop her from going out there and making things happen. And so we're just a lot more capable than we realize, regardless of the limitations we think we may have. I mean, don't get me wrong, I also go through it too. I feel like that. And then when I see her, I realize, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. And so those are some of the stories that kind of stood out and just kind of always reminds me like I can get this done. I can do this. Even if it's we have to embrace the suck a little bit longer, it's gonna happen.
Wow. So let's touch base more about like self-confidence, because a lot of us women, we go through that. We go through it for looking at other women on social media. We go through it just by people saying things to us or have said things to us by growing up, and even your spouse, whomever you married to. Sometimes a lot of people could mess up our self confidence as well. And sometimes we get in our own way mentally, and we be all over the place with our self confidence. So, what is some advice that you have for women and even men to build up their self confidence, for them to actually feel better confident about themselves? And what are like some of the steps they could take to go towards that, to build it up?
That is a great question. And, when it comes to confidence, why we struggle with it, I think people don't realize we really need to get down to the root cause as to why we resist, why we have low self confidence. It was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, A Guide to Moving Beyond Trauma and Awakening the Leader Within, because trauma is something that's not talked about enough. And if we don't work through our traumas, then we're always going to have that trauma control us versus us, taking charge of our own destiny. So, an example is like as a kid in the Philippines, I failed kindergarten for coloring outside the lines. Like, which is wild because as a kid, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to color outside the lines. That shouldn't be a pass or fail thing, right? But unfortunately, I failed for coloring outside the lines of this one photo. I had to move to another school and redo kindergarten all over again, and that traumatic experience, was with me until my adult life, because everything I did, I always thought I was a constant failure, so I never tried, and then my confidence would go down. And so it wasn't until I had a personal development seminar that I went to that I realized like that was the root cause as to why I always thought I was a failure, and that moment in my life wasn't really failure. Just because one person said it was doesn't mean it was the absolute truth. That was a
Right.
sign that I was just always meant to do things outside the lines. My path will always be different from like what is considered the norm, especially growing up in Asian culture. We're just taught to live one way of life. You go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you never rock the boat. And
Right.
so the route I'm at is like not typical, right? Like I'm not married, I don't have kids, I'm in my 40s. My aunts and my grandma thinks I'm an old maid. Like, it's
Really?
it's like,
Oh,
it's like totally not what I'm supposed to be doing, but I had to push through that. I had to unlearn a lot of things in my culture and just work on my mindset to push through. So that's one thing. Really get to the root cause as to why you're feeling that way or why you're doing that or why you resist. And people don't even realize that we're not even only carrying our own trauma, but the trauma of our parents, our grandparents. So intergenerational trauma is very prevalent. And I also think historical trauma is also prevalent. I mean, in China, men could have multiple wives and concubines. And the reason was that so that they had more chances of having a son that would carry their family name. And
wow.
so if that's been happening for like so many centuries and that never like we never healed through that, we're gonna think as women we're just objects, right? We're no good, and that marriage is the only solution for everything. So we really have to get to the root cause, find ways to heal from it. Um, learn to love ourselves, take care of ourselves because that's very important. And when I say like love yourself, like love the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And then
Mhm.
as you're doing all that, start finding ways to build confidence, whether it's working on your mindset every day, right? Like personal development every day is so important. Surrounding yourself with people who will lift you up, right? Reading books, listening to podcasts like these. Uh,
Mhm.
even with trauma, like mental health is something we don't talk about a lot, right? And in most cultures, it's not in most cultures it's still a taboo, right? Like in my culture, some the elder generation thinks it doesn't exist. And I know it's not only in Asian culture where mental health is a taboo, it's in most cultures. And so um maybe it's seeking a mental health therapist, right? Sometimes you have to be okay to seek help. Of course, seek the right help, right?
Mhm.
And also for me, one big lesson I had to learn was be okay to receive help when someone offers it. So, because in our culture, asking for help is a sign of weakness or a handout. So I was always ashamed of asking for help because I thought I was useless if I kept asking for help. But really, when you have help and support, it makes things a lot better and a lot faster. So,
Mhm.
um, those are some of the things I would suggest. But really, the most important thing is before you find ways, before you find ways to build confidence, figure out what is that root cause that's really stopping you from moving forward. Maybe there's what is the trauma in your life that's holding you back?
Yeah.
And when you can when you're aware of it and find ways to heal from it, then you can find ways to build that confidence to be that person that you were meant to be.
Yes. You know, confidence is so like broad when it comes to that. And you were mentioning about like how family things are like so traditional, and I find it like so difficult sometimes because we find a lot of things that like our parents and grandparents and stuff of things that they've been through. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not the right thing to have as far as like having your confidence of loving yourself and putting yourself first and everything. I feel like so much is put on a woman
Oh
a
yeah.
lot, especially when it comes to having children. It's like, okay, he's the provider. He gives you the money to pay the bills, or he pay the bills, or different things like that. And it's just to a point, it's overwhelming, and it takes a lot of like mental health issues when a woman is raising a child, because she isn't only thinking for herself, she's thinking for her children as well. And that's a lot when you're trying to like take care of a child, and you have to make sure they okay, they safe constantly, they're dressed, they eat, they bathe. It's a lot that comes with it when you're raising a child. But it's like at the same time, when does the mother get a break? Or if the children are at a certain age, some families, the children get to work at a very young age as well, and they have to do different things. So it's like you have children that are growing up too fast and not able to have a childhood. So it's a lot when it comes to the mental health and the confidence gap and all that. And I'm so glad that you touched base on many other like just different cultures of women, so we can all actually know what is traditional and what's not in the comparison between us having like the different families and stuff, because we all are different, but we all the same at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah, we go through so much similarities regardless of religion, cultural background. As women, we go through so many different things and, we do so much more, of course, right? We're natural born caretakers. And it's unfair sometimes because you hear like these male gurus or experts or bros who like tell you need to work on your business 12 hours a day. And as a woman, you'd be lucky if you get 2 hours a day because you're doing other stuff. You're not just working on your business. You're taking care of your kids, you're meal planning, you're running errands, you're taking care of other family members. And so we have to learn to juggle all that and still work on our business. And, we don't not all women have the luxury to work 12 hours a day on their business. Imagine what they could achieve if they did, right? And
Mhm.
so we have to be a little bit more strategic about it, right? Learning to work smart, learning to um, you know, if we have the funds to have a team member help us out, that would be great. Or, you know, be able to talk to your partner and be like, let's figure something out so that, I can have the time to work on my business, or ask your parents to babysit your kids or something, right? because, that 1, 2, 3 hours can make a huge difference, right? And unfortunately, sometimes as women, we're the problem because if we see a woman who's working on her business, it's like, oh, you're not a mother, you're too busy working on your business. And it's like,
Mhm.
you're trying to be both and you're trying to
Yeah.
juggle it. And I think, as women, we just need to be a little bit more empathetic with each other because, I've seen it, right? Where women just bring other women down, uh, especially like if you're still single at a certain age. It's like
No,
the
don't have kids at a certain age.
Yeah, they're like, "Are you socially awkward? Is something wrong with you?" And then, of course, then you start thinking, "Is there something wrong with me?" But really there's nothing wrong with you, right? Like, everyone's in her own journey. Everything happens for a reason. And, people don't realize too just because you're in a marriage, and I'm not saying this is all marriages, but of course, not all marriages are great. What you may see on social media might not even be what happens behind closed doors, right?
Definitely. Yes.
So you can't take everything face value. You don't know what happens behind closed doors. And so would you marry someone just for the sake of being married and not being alone? And you'll be okay if your partner treats you like crap or beats on you or puts you down, like, is that something you really want? Or you want to find the right person who you can spend the rest of your life with, who really loves you unconditionally for who you are, and you make it work together. So yeah, it's the whole thing.
Definitely. What is like one piece of evidence that you wish you had received earlier in your journey?
I think knowing that there's no such thing as overnight success, social media can be so, like
Yeah, it
it
can.
could be bad, right? I love social media, I hate social media, right? You see these people who, like, "I travel the world, I have this fancy mansion, I have these great cars," which is great, if you've been able to work for it, you deserve it, I that's awesome, right? But then
Yeah.
nobody talks about what they had to go through to get through that, right? Like working, 24 hours in a day, not having any sleep, going through 1,000 rejections, or, you were trying to do something and like whatever you expected is like the total 180, right? Like there's so many things that arise that nobody ever talks about. Like, I
Sure.
remember Lizzo had a tweet like a couple years back, and she mentioned what really got her to her music career was that she sang a lot of like free concerts. She hardly got paid. Sometimes she got paid for beer to sing at a certain club, and she had to do that for a good amount of time before she got to her success.
Mhm.
Even authors, right? Like, not every author gets a book deal just on the spot. Like,
Yeah.
the lady who wrote Harry Potter, like, she got rejected by, like, 50 publishers before she got picked
Yes.
up. And I bet you all those 50 publishers were probably regretting it.
Yes.
So,
Seriously.
I think it's knowing that, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing things on your own, I mean, we have to learn to embrace the suck. Sometimes you're doing something and you're putting everything, right? Your heart and soul into it, and it feels like nothing's happening. Like everything's at a standstill. And you're like so frustrated because you're doing everything you can and nothing's happening. And
Mhm.
there's a part of you that feels like I'm going to quit because I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Not realizing you're so close. You're so much closer than you realize. And just because you feel like nothing's happening, you really are putting in the work, right? Because it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some time. And, whatever work you put in, whatever, action you take, it's going to come back to you. It might not come back right away and you feel frustrated, but it will come back. And so I think those are some of the things I would have loved to learn so that I just didn't think, oh, I just posted something on Facebook and I got 0 likes. I suck.
Yeah.
Done. It's like, no, you need to do that so you can get results, and then you can start, course correcting as you go. Okay, you got 0 on this post. What's the next one? Let's see what happened. Maybe you got 5. Okay, what's the difference, right? How did I get 0 on this and how did I get 5 on the other? So, it's also testing, getting feedback, getting results so that we can get better as we keep doing this.
Yes, that is true. And even like the success overnight, it's like we have to count our small wins, and we don't really pay attention to them because we're looking for that big, like, boom, like, yes, I finally made it. But it's like you are literally making it. It's just taking baby steps, because I don't think I would want a success overnight, honestly, because I probably, a lot of times I probably wouldn't appreciate it like I should, because I didn't go through nothing to actually get there. So if you go through different things, it's helping your mental, it's helping you grow, it's helping you realize a lot of things that of you personally, and it's helping you realize people that are in your life or just people surrounding you, because throughout your journey of you going through so many things, you are able to help someone later in life that may be going through it too. So a lot of that could come with it too. And then just for us to even just come together and just be able to have that amazing testimony to share with someone, because we have a lot of millionaires that have worked so hard in their 20s and 30s, and then boom, when they hit in their 40s or late 40s or 50s, next thing you know, they're like millionaires and everything is working for them. So it's like we have to really just count our small wins to actually see how much we have progressed in. Just even starting the journey is even amazing, because it's some people that just haven't just started and they're still stuck in a position and still have the mindset like, I wish I did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you're right. Like we have to celebrate every single win that we have, no matter how big or small it is, because we're always going to be doing different things. And the more we can celebrate it, the more it also builds our confidence to like take on the next task and take on the next task, because we've been able to just conquer these little things.
hmm it takes a lot, but we're gonna get there. We're definitely gonna get there. So, how do you balance being an author, keynote speaker, consultant, podcaster, host, and just maintaining your personal well-being and your confidence?
Yeah, so I don't have kids, so that's one thing.
Yeah,
I take a lot of season breaks.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, the writing, I'm given certain deadlines, so I learn to schedule around those and just really have one of the things I do is I do have like a tracker, like a perfect day tracker where I do specific things every single day that helps me, that keeps me accountable. So it helps me learn to organize and give myself a time like, okay, from this time I'm going to do this one and then I'm going to do this one. And then as I check off that tracker, it helps me also see what I've done and the kind of results I have. And then if I don't hit that, then I start asking, well, what should I do to hit that? Right? Sometimes for me, I need to see it so I can see what I can work on. And when I don't use that, I fall off and don't do anything. So having some sort of tracker really helps me. So if my goal is like, talk to 10 new people a day, I'll talk to 10 new people a day, right? And if I don't, I'll be like, I only did 5. But 5 is better than 0. So
Like,
so but yeah, but being able to have that really helps me.
wow. So, tell me a little bit more about your book. Like, what encouraged you to actually just even start to write it?
That's a great question. I mean, I have a previous book from these two. It's called Asian Women Who Boss Up, and I co-created that with a friend that she started a book series out of the pandemic called Women Who Boss Up. And
Okay.
out of the pandemic, I met this lady online in the summer and like the height of COVID when everyone was stuck at home. And I was telling her about my podcast and what I do. And she was like, we should make a book highlighting Asian women. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I have no idea how to write a book. I didn't know anything about it, publishing, nothing. And I was like, okay, we're just committed. If it's gonna take us a year to find these women, we're committed. I mean, it took way less than a year. It came out in February of 2021. I utilized that to promote who I was, my message, and that led me to writing this book. The publisher Wiley, who saw it, invited me to speak for one of their events, and after they heard me speak, they're like, would you want to work with us as an author?" And I'm like, "Me? Are you sure about that?" And I almost didn't take it because I was like, "I have no idea what leadership even looks like. And you want me to write about leadership? Like, I don't even know if I would consider myself a leader." And so, of course, imposter syndrome, right? Feeling like a fraud. And I realized I had to get this done because there's not a lot of Asian women out there who are authors, let alone be an author for a major publisher like Wiley. So I said yes. I had less than 3 months to write this book. Came out May of last year, made it to the Wall Street Journal list, best-selling list. Um, and then now I have my upcoming book, which is here, Closing the Confidence Gap, which is coming out in May of 2025. And I had a little bit more time writing that book. But yeah, I mean, I never thought I would ever write a book, let alone for like a traditional publisher. Not because I didn't believe in myself, it was more like it just wasn't in my cards, right? Like if you look at the publishing industry, it's still like 75% Caucasians, right? And so, like, thinking like an Asian woman's chance is like one out of a million. I don't know. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but like it's a small chance. But sometimes we're presented with all these opportunities and we're so afraid to seize the opportunity, especially as women, because we feel like we need to know more before we
Yeah.
can say yes, not realizing you can say yes and figure it out as you go because guess what? That's what men do all the time. Like,
Oh,
they
tell me.
just they just figure it out. Like, I remember one of my girlfriends, she wanted to apply for a manager position at her work, and her boyfriend got a management position, and she was, like, asking him, "So, what did you do to get the position?" And he had 3 words, and his 3 words were, "I don't know." Like, he and so I started laughing because, yeah, that's like guys will just go out there and do it. They'll go for it regardless of the outcome. Meanwhile, we're still so afraid that if we get rejected, we're a failure. And I'm that way too. Like I have to remind myself, like, be okay to make mistakes, be okay to pivot, be okay to like just shoot your shot because you just don't know who might say yes. And so um yeah, like, I think that's really important, that's another reason why, um, I decided to write the book. I was like, "Okay, I'll figure it out." I had an outline. I'll figure out the content as I go. And even the second book, they were just like, "Give me an outline." I was like, "Okay, here's an outline." And I was like, "Okay, I gotta figure out what to write now." So it's not like I graduated with confidence, I took accounting in college because I was like, that's the Asian thing to do, and never used it, and I'm writing books. So, yeah.
Wow. So I've heard you throughout the whole podcast mention a lot about um like Asians and how you are trying to open more doors for them. Like even when it comes to you podcasting, you being an author, just different things like that. I love it. I love it so much because you are giving these women hope. You are giving them an opportunity to actually think outside the box for them to be able to become whomever they want to become. Even if they wanted to become a podcaster, they can, or become an author, or become a doctor, or anything. You're just giving them so many doors that can just open for them if they just actually just build up the confidence and actually just do it. And the fact that you're paving the way and you focus on them so well and so much in representation, like you are so dope.
Thank you. I mean, the reason why I created it was because I just don't want current and future generations to go through what I went through growing up in Toronto, not having representation, feeling like I'm not enough, feeling like I'm ashamed of myself, like, because I'm not blonde hair and blue eyes. Like, I want them to, first of all, be very comfortable in their own skin, be proud of their heritage, and,
Yeah.
like, dare to dream, dare to do things outside the norm. Let's normalize doing different things, especially as women, because the more we can go out there and show up and speak up and show everyone what's possible, like that's how we can create the change. And of course, I can't do it all alone. It takes all of us to do it so we can create that change. So when you have these issues that women are going through, it affects me all the time because I realize that can happen to us, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like the world is erasing women. I don't know.
Oh
It just
my God. I feel
maybe
like we're under attack constantly.
yeah. So it's like we have to do something, right? It's like up to us at this point to figure something out because if not, then we're just gonna go back to this cycle over and over again. So
Yeah, yeah, well, and we are. It's kind of crazy because I look at many of us women and we are dominating everything. I've seen women on TikTok are electricians. I've seen them becoming plumbers. I've seen them build houses. I've seen them become construction workers, truck drivers. It's like so many fields that men usually have. I've been seeing women working in that field and they like, well, heck, if they could do it, we can do it. And they have motivated so many other women in different cultures to actually just step out there and just go for it, and I find it just so amazing, and I feel like we just need to just keep it going and just keep showing up, and that's even one of the reasons why I created Life Her podcast. This is something I was going to do with my mom before she passed because I had a youth program for young girls, and so the girls became older. So I still wanted to motivate them somehow. So it's like, okay, my mom like just start a podcast and they can still listen to it just like they're coming to your group session. So me actually doing it now, and then I've had so many women and even some men being on my podcast and sharing so much information about starting a business or just working in a field, helping you confidence, helping you with self-love, mental health. You have so many topics, but it's like so much information we normally may not get on a day-to-day basis talking to someone, because people have to have that mindset for you to actually be around someone to actually teach you that. So me and you are doing amazing and nobody can tell us nothing, girl.
you're right.
Seriously, like you really should feel good about yourself for even just stepping out and just doing this because you are needed.
Oh,
Like
thank you. It's not easy. I definitely eat my feelings a lot.
you are, because it's just I have some friends that are Asian too, and I just need to tell them about you because they say this all the time, and it's like that's why I love diversity on my podcast so much, because everyone can listen to anything from and learn something, and it's important. It really is. And if we all come together, oh my gosh, we will have a better world
We'll
today.
be invincible.
Yes, definitely. So where do you see yourself? I'm going to say in like 5 years from now.
Oh my gosh, when everyone asks me this question, I'm like, "Man, I don't even know what's gonna happen tomorrow."
You sound like me. I'm like, well, I don't even know what's gonna happen tonight.
I think for me, it's just always, um, finding ways to elevate women, to have more women in leadership, to build confidence, to just show up and realize we can be visible, right? I look at, like, BTS, okay? I always like using them because like there's 7 dudes from Korea who couldn't even speak English singing Korean, and yet they're one of the biggest, probably the biggest band in the world. They got fans in like Chile and Africa and like topping the charts, and they sing in Korean, right? And
Yes,
so I think that's awesome because especially like with this book, that it says it's a guide for Asian women, but it can be for anybody. Of course, I'm going to talk about Asian women because I'm Asian, right? I'm
right,
not
right,
Latino,
right.
I'm not Latina, I'm not black, so I can't talk about their experience if I've never been through it. But I'm
Yes.
Asian, I can understand that because I grew up not in one but two Asian cultures. And so, I constantly got these questions like, well, can it relate to people who aren't Asian? I'm like, yeah, I mean, everyone's been through trauma. Everyone goes through trauma. Everyone goes through PTSD, intergenerational trauma. So of course they can relate to this. And I've had so many people who've read the book, of course, who are not Asian and have loved it and could relate to it. And it's like, you know, I get constantly asked this question. It's like you would never ask a white man that question, right? And so I realized like it's okay, I just keep moving. I just keep telling it until it's like, oh, this book can be for everybody, right? But it was frustrating at first because it's like, oh yeah, of course. And then I look at BTS, like, look, these guys are singing in Korean and they're a worldwide sensation. So like it doesn't really matter, right? Like if you have a message, you have a message, you're gonna go out there. People will resonate with it no
Yeah.
matter what gender or cultural background or religion you have because we're human. We all bleed the same color and we go through similar things.
Hmm. We definitely do. So, what is your next step when it comes to you? Are you going to write another book after you release your one?
Oh my gosh. I mean, this was the second so this is the second book. I just finished writing it. It's coming out May of 2025. Sorry, my headphones fell off. But after that, I think I might need a small break. I mean, writing a book is a lot. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a lot out of you, and I'm really glad that my friend told me this one piece of advice when it came to writing. It was, "Write like you're drunk and edit like you're sober." So, I
Oh,
was like I took that to
okay.
heart. I mean, I wasn't drunk literally, I just, like, wrote it, and then, of course, do the editing later. Because especially when you're writing like, when I'm writing, I'm like, "Oh my god, does this make sense? Do I sound stupid? Are people gonna like it? Are they gonna like it as much as the first book?" So, of course, all these thoughts come through our head, and so that's why sometimes you just need to mind up everything, and then we can edit it and figure it out later. So, um, so like, especially with writing, sometimes you just gotta write it out. Don't worry about grammar, don't worry about spelling. You can do that later on. As long as you have the information, you can find a way to make it flow, figure out which chapter it's on, hire someone if you need to. The most important is getting it out there or just
Yeah.
dumping it on a piece of paper or on your computer or iPad or whatever, or even talk on a voice recorder if you had to.
Right, right. So tell me, what's the most rewarding part of your work and how do you measure your success beyond the numbers and accolades?
I think for me, it's just the messages I get from women telling me how it's really helped them build their confidence, do the hard things. Those are actually those are the most rewarding because I mean, I like, as a human being, sometimes we don't think we can make a difference, right? You don't think one
Right.
person can make a difference, but that's far from the truth. I mean, look what Cassie did. Like, she just opened a can of, she just literally opened Pandora's box, right? Because she
Yes.
had the courage to share her story of what she went through. And that
Mhm.
must have been so scary when you think about it. Like, think if I was in that position, like, it'd be so scary because it's like you against like probably one of the most powerful people in the world, right? And of course, I know it's all alleged and stuff, so we have to say that just to cover everything. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying like, you can make a difference. And so for me, that's the most rewarding is seeing like that transformation. Especially when, I see this person who was afraid to put themselves out there and now they're promoting themselves because they see me promoting, right?
That's
Um, so yeah, that's I think the biggest thing is just seeing that transformation and just getting those like really personal messages.
wow. So, what message do you have for anyone that is listening to the podcast today?
I know the hardest part of your journey is to start, so just start messy, make mistakes. It's okay to be imperfect because guys are always imperfect. They always make mistakes, but they get things done. And so be okay to start messy. Sometimes your mess is your power, Like,
It is.
why do you think reality shows are so popular? Because 'Cause they're all a hot mess. So,
Oh,
like
they
so
make sense.
yeah, you need to let go of imperfection and just start, right? You'll figure it out. You don't have to You don't have to worry. You will figure everything out. Like, just learn to start before you're ready, and you'd be surprised what you can accomplish. So that would be the one piece of advice. I know it's easier said than done because I've been there. I've resisted a lot. I've delayed it. I procrastinate like there's no tomorrow. But I realized once I started, I was like, what was I procrastinating about? So I don't want you to go through what I went through.
Yes, for sure. How can anyone get in contact with you, purchase your books, and your website and everything?
Yeah, for sure. So my website, sheenayapchan.com. So that you just go to the website. There's a free self-confidence personality quiz that you can take. They'll tell you what your self-confidence personality is. As for the book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, you can order it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and any other book retailer out in the world, basically. So it's really cool to just see this book like everywhere in the world that I didn't expect either. And then my upcoming book is available for pre-order. So you can pre-order on Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, and other major book retailers. And if you upload a receipt or send me a receipt, you can just send it through my website. I have some pre-order bonuses for you that you get just as a thank you for ordering it ahead of time. So, and
Oh,
the podcast, it's on all major podcast directories, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, um, YouTube now because Google Play's gone. It's YouTube. And if you forget anything I said, just Google my name, Sheena Yap Chan, because I'm the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
that is dope too. That is amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast show. I really appreciate you. I enjoyed your company. I enjoyed your knowledge and everything. I hope that we keep in touch.
Yes, thank you again for having me. It was such an honor to be here, and I just had a blast chatting with you, especially on the topic of confidence.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9 to 5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.